Hi, I'm Ethan Alter, and I'll be crane kicking with the Karate Kid himself, Ralph Macchio, as we discuss his new memoir, Waxing On, for Under the Covers. I have to do this. I'm going to hold it up as I begin. We got this when Cobra Kai debuted, but we've got the. So I'll just get your approval as I tie this on here. Make sure I'm doing it right.
You're a franchise player.
Well, we're here talking about your great memoir, Waxing On, and one thing that I liked right away off the bat, I love that you said that you were a Gene Kelly kid growing up.
I remember coming home from school as a kid, 4, 5, 6 years old, and my mom would have like the 4:30 movie on television, and it was always the great musicals. You know, I was mesmerized by Gene Kelly's athleticism, his suaveness, his handsomeness, his charisma. It was my early stages of witnessing storytelling and great storytelling. I knew I wasn't going to be the quarterback, so I thought maybe I had a shot at a little bit of tap dancing. So therein lies my first steps, pun intended, into the world of entertainment.
You have a major role in The Outsiders. You're Johnny who gets a death scene. That's a major moment, and you're a young actor at that point. Were you aware of just how key that role was?
Yeah, I was aware. If anything, I was too aware. It was so precious to me, and I just, I felt like someone handed me the scripture, if you will. And when you look back at it, it's like, come on, it's, you're in a movie, relax. Stay gold. You have one shot at saying it a certain way, and do it for Johnny. And it was all big from the novel, and then it became another level when it was in the movie. And I hear those lines out on the street today. I felt the responsibility toward it because it was a novel that was really popular, and it was required reading in many English classes.
You mentioned the 16 Candles audition, which is a great story there.
Yeah, I read for the part Anthony Michael Hall got, and Emilio was reading the quote-unquote jock, because this was 80s, and that everybody was categorized a little more stereotypical at that. And I write to that point, the 80s of it all. There's a chapter in the book that talks about how movies were made, how characters were, and what we miss, what we love from that time, what we miss from that time, but what we understand is different from that time. But in this case, we went in, because I talk about that I was never in a John Hughes movie. So yeah, I went in and I had it all in my head that I was going to have kind of this nerdy walk and kind of like a little bit of a nasally talk. And I was doing a whole character version, and John Hughes and the casting director just wanted me to be just natural Ralph. And in my head, I'm not a nerd. I was way too cool in my own mind. I was probably still trying too hard. I mentioned this in the book. When you think about successful films, usually the right actor gets the right part. Matthew Broderick is Ferris Bueller, Michael J. Fox is Marty McFly, and arguably Ralph Macchio is Daniel LaRusso.
Yeah, on the Marty McFly point, I didn't realize you were in the conversations for Back to the Future. And you mentioned in the book that you reading the part, you're like, oh, this is more middle American than maybe I could be. Was that really what you got a sense that was probably not going to work?
That was sort of what I was mentioned. Can you lose the New York accent? This is more apple pie and all American. The irony is that it was initially played by a Canadian.
Did you find that being Italian American, being strongly New York, it affected you?
It was a road in. I mean, for Daniel LaRusso, I sort of just amped up a little of that East Coast cockiness when I walked in the room. I mean, and any of that cockiness that Macchio had was never backed up. I think if I got my butt kicked by a bunch of motorcycle riding karate experts, I probably would have left well enough alone. So I don't know if the East Coast got in the way, but it was certainly the category I was in, and I think less so as I got older and matured as an actor. But it's in my bones,
You write very movingly of Pat in the book, I think. But it's funny to learn that when you first met him, you're like, wait, he's going to be Mr. Miyagi, because you knew him from Happy Days.
No one wanted Pat for that role, and he has spoken about it over the years, and so has the studio and the producers. John Avildsen saw it, and his casting director saw it, and it was interesting because it was all right there in front of us. But it was like, no, not Arnold from Happy Days. He's he's silly, crazy comic. He's nice, looks like a nice enough guy, but he doesn't have the gravitas to be Mr. Miyagi. And
when he played the role, he was nominated for Best Supporting Actor Oscar. He received awards from Asian American organizations for it. That role sometimes does have issues with stereotyping. Some people feel it's a little bit of a stereotype. Did he ever wrestle with that himself? Is he aware of how it might be perceived?
It's tough for me to answer for him, and certainly he's no longer with us, but he did take a great deal of responsibility in being genuine and is honest to the culture. I remember him talking just about the history, the Japanese American culture, the internment camps, the World War II, which he was personally connected. He spent time in an internment camp during that time, and Robert Kamen, who wrote The Karate Kid, does a beautiful job in that backstory of Miyagi's tragedy and what Daniel LaRusso means to him, and why this movie that is more than just the popcorn summer movie of 1984. You know, it was kind of ahead of its time, and I believe the first major motion picture to ever deal with that.
After the sequels came out, you were in a rough place career-wise. You had a hard time. Sort of at that point, did you come to resent Daniel a little bit because of the shadow he sort of cast over your life?
And I never, sort of poo-pooed it and say, I'm never talking about this. The Karate Kid 3 was a tough one for me because I felt the character of Daniel LaRusso only went backwards and the story became a little bit of a cartoon. I always felt the abandoning of the Karate Kid 2 Okinawa love stories for going just back to kind of repeating the first movie, but not as good. I was never in favor of that. And nor did I think my performance was at the level of the other films. It just felt like sequels often do. They overstay their welcome or did not evolve. I think that's what did not help moving forward and finding other roles. The fact that I was not aging at a pace of the norm, quote unquote. So I still have the boyish kid, ness as I was trying to mature into other roles. And, my time was up for the moment. Now, 2022, it's a whole different story.
To talk a little bit about Cobra Kai, obviously, we just finished season 5. We're waiting to find out on season 6. Do you hope the show comes back? What do you hope for the future?
I liked the jump forward for him in season 5 and him losing control and everyone coming to his aid. He was once again the protagonist that everyone was rallying around as he was as a teenager, because his intentions are always good. So now he's got a daughter probably getting ready for college and a son in the midst of high school and needing, and sort of maybe this karate war is behind him, but as always is the case with Cobra Kai, our karate soap opera, another door closes, another one opens. So, more antics and fun. It's like it's comfort food. It's that great cheeseburger you ate as a kid and you get to have it again.